Mister, would you take one of us? Ethan Reed was late again, his jaw tight behind the wheel of a black luxury sedan when the traffic light trapped him in place. And that's when he saw her, a thin little girl, maybe 8, perched on the curb with 2 infants pressed to her chest, like she was holding the whole world together. Her hair was tangled, her clothes dulled by street dust, but her arms didn't shake, not from weakness, but from fierce control. When one baby whimpered, she rocked him with the calm of someone twice her age, whispering words Ethan couldn't hear over the city's rush. He pulled into a no-parking zone without thinking and stepped out in a tailored suit that didn't belong in that neighborhood. He crouched to her level. "Are they your brothers?" She nodded fast. "No parents? Just us." Her name was Lily, and the twins were Noah and Miles, only a few months old, too light, too quiet. Ethan offered food. Lily's eyes narrowed. "Everyone wants something." "I don't," he said, surprising himself. "You need help." But she set one rule, her voice small and unbreakable. "If I go with you, you promise you won't split us up." Ethan swallowed hard. "I promise." At his cold, spotless house, he realized he owned everything except what babies needed. Lily guided him through diapers formula, tiny bottles like a child forced to become a mother overnight. And somewhere between her careful instructions and the twins' exhausted breaths, Ethan felt his life tilt off its polished track toward something terrifying, messy, and real family. By the time Ethan turned the key in his front door, the house felt less like a home and more like a showroom. Quiet, polished, and wrong for a child who flinched at soft things. Lily hovered at the edge of his white leather sofa, keeping Noah and Miles strapped to her like a shield. "I'll grab a few things and be right back," Ethan said, already reaching for his wallet. "No." Lily stood so fast her knees wobbled. Her fingers tightened around the babies. "We don't stay alone in a strange place." Ethan froze. The sentence wasn't dramatic. It was practiced like something she'd learned the hard way. He nodded once. "Okay, we go together." At the grocery store, Ethan pushed the cart like it might explode. Lily pointed with the authority of a tired expert. Formula, diapers, wipes, bottles small nipples for Miles. Noah likes that one. She didn't browse. She calculated. Every choice was survival. Back home, she taught him how to mix a bottle, how to test the temperature on the inside of his wrist, how to cradle a tiny head so it wouldn't tip back. Ethan's expensive watch flashed under the kitchen lights as he fumbled with a bottle cap, and Lily quietly corrected him without mocking. When Noah finally latched and drank, the sound was so small it nearly broke Ethan. That night, Ethan offered her a bed. Lily shook her head and curled on the floor beside the twins' makeshift nest of blankets. "We sleep together. It's safer." Ethan lingered in the doorway, listening to her hum, thin, steady, brave. For the first time in years, he didn't fall asleep thinking about meetings. He fell asleep thinking about promises, and whether he could become the kind of man who deserved hers. At 6:03 a.m., the sound sliced through Ethan's sleep-thin, frantic crying, rising from downstairs like an alarm you can't ignore. He stumbled down the steps in sweatpants and bare feet, the marble cold under his soles, and found Lily already awake on the floor beside the twins. Her hair was damp with sweat, her arms tight around Noah, who trembled against her chest. "He's hot," she said, voice flat but shaking at the edges. "He doesn't get sick." Ethan pressed 2 fingers to the baby's forehead and felt the heat punch back. For a second, his mind, so sharp in boardrooms, went blank. Lily watched him like she was watching a door about to slam. "We're going to a doctor," Ethan said, reaching for his phone. "Doctors cost money," Lily answered automatically, like it was a law of nature. "I always handled it." That sentence landed harder than the fever. An 8-year-old shouldn't have an always like that. Ethan crouched beside her, lowering his voice the way you do when the world is too loud. "Listen to me, Lily. You don't have to handle it alone anymore. Not today. Not ever. On the drive, Lily kept whispering to Noah, half lullaby, half prayer, while Miles slept unaware. At the clinic, Dr. Calvin Harper, a gray-haired pediatrician with gentle hands, examined Noah and finally nodded. A bad cold. Treatable. Lily's breath released in a broken little gasp. But then the doctor's eyes softened as he looked at both babies. They've been through hunger, he said quietly. They need steady food vitamins time. Lily's chin dipped, shame flashing across her face. Ethan stepped closer, close enough that she could feel him there. It's not on her, he said firm. Then he looked at Lily and made the promise real again, not just words. We're going to get them strong, and we're going to do it together. Outside the pharmacy, Lily trailed Ethan like a shadow, her small hand gripping the strap of the diaper bag as if letting go would make everything disappear. When he paid, she leaned in, eyes sharp. How much was it? It doesn't matter, Ethan said. It matters, she insisted, chin lifting. I need to know what I owe you. Ethan stopped right there on the sidewalk, traffic hissing past. He lowered himself until they were eye level, so she couldn't hide behind the babies or the noise. Lily, he said softly, when you take care of family, you don't keep a scorecard. Her mouth opened like she had an argument ready, then closed again because the word family hit a place she didn't let anyone touch. That night, the kitchen was warm for the first time. Steam rising from a mug of milk Ethan had heated because Lily's hands wouldn't stop trembling. Noah slept against her shoulder. Miles made tiny, hungry sighs in his blanket nest. Ethan rested his palms on the counter like he needed it to stand. Do you know what adoption is? He asked. Lily's eyes flicked up, hope and fear wrestling in the same stare. It's when someone takes kids who don't have a real family. What if Ethan swallowed, I want to be your real family? For good. Silence. The refrigerator hummed. Lily's voice came out small, almost angry. If I mess up, you won't send us away. Never. And if you get tired of babies or you get a girlfriend who hates us. Her grip tightened around Noah like she was bracing for impact. Ethan stepped closer, careful, like approaching something fragile. Then she's not for me, he said. And if I choose you, I choose all three of you. No half measures, no separating. Not ever. 3 days later, Ethan was cracking eggs into a skillet when he heard Lily's voice in the living room, low, tight, the way a person sounds when they're trying not to fall apart. No, I don't want to go, she whispered. I want to stay here. The pan hissed, but Ethan barely heard it. He moved closer and saw her gripping the phone with both hands, knuckles white. Tears clung to her lashes without falling like she was refusing even that. He takes care of us, Lily said, voice rising. The babies are healthy. I'm happy here. Ethan's stomach dropped. He stepped in gently, took the receiver. This is Ethan Reed. A woman's voice snapped back, polite and cold. Mr. Reed, I'm caseworker Dana Cross. After reviewing the situation, we've decided the children must be placed in a temporary facility until the adoption process is complete. Temporary? Ethan tasted the word like poison. He looked at Lily, her shoulders already curling inward, ready for the next loss. They're safe, they're fed, they're together. Protocols exist for a reason, Dana said. A van will arrive tomorrow at 10 a.m. No. Ethan said louder than he meant to. In the corner, Noah and Miles lay on a blanket with soft blocks blinking up at the ceiling like the world had never hurt them. Ethan lowered his voice, forcing it steady. Please, give me time to prove this is the best place for them. The decision is made. The line went dead. Lily's breath came in shallow pulls like she'd been punched. They're going to take us, she said, cracking on the last word. Ethan dropped to his knees in front of her, hands open, helpless and furious. Not without a fight, he said, and as he reached for his phone to call Jordan Blake, his attorney, Ethan realized something terrifying. This wasn't about comfort anymore. This was war against a system that called love irregular. Ethan didn't sleep. He sat at the kitchen table with Jordan Blake's number on repeat papers scattered like fallen leaves, bank statements, emails, anything that proved stability to people who'd never held Noah through a fever. At 5:45 a.m., he finally stood jaw clenched and began packing with the kind of calm that only shows up when panic has nowhere left to go. Lily watched him fold baby onesies with hands that didn't feel like a child's. "Where are we going?" she asked, voice paper thin. "Somewhere safe," Ethan said, forcing his breathing steady, "just until I can stop them." By 8, they were on the highway, the city shrinking behind them. Lily sat in back, one arm braced around Noah, the other around Miles, her eyes fixed on the rear window like she could will danger away. 2 hours later, they reached a small, quiet town and a modest country house Ethan had bought years ago, and forgotten dusty plain, but warm enough to hide hope. For 2 nights the silence held. On the third, headlights swept across the curtains. Ethan's blood went cold. He moved fast, whispering Lily bedroom, "Lock it." But before she could turn, a knock rattled the door frame. Ethan opened it to find Dana Cross standing beside 2 police officers, their expressions already decided. Mr. Reed, Dana said, crisp as paperwork, "You've removed the children without authorization. This is kidnapping." "They're my family," Ethan snapped. "Legally they're not." Behind him, soft footsteps. Lily appeared holding both babies' shoulders squared. "I'm not going," she said loud enough to cut through the night. One older officer, Sergeant Paul Mercer, hesitated, his eyes flicking from Lily's shaking arms to Ethan's trembling hands. Dana's voice tightened. "Lily, you don't get to choose." Lily's stare didn't blink. "Then why does it feel like you're the one breaking us?" The air shifted. And for the first time, Ethan saw it, one crack in the wall. Enough to fight through. Sergeant Paul Mercer cleared his throat, eyes lingering on Lily's cramped arms and the twins' startled faces. "Dana, maybe we slow down," he said, voice low but steady. "These kids look safe." Dana Cross's mouth tightened. "Protocols. Protocols don't hold a baby at 3 a.m. Mercer cut in, surprising even himself. The night hung there, cold, breathless, until Dana exhaled through her nose like she was swallowing pride. 2 weeks, she snapped. "You return to the city, daily check-ins. Miss one and they're removed, no debate." Ethan nodded once, like a man signing his own survival papers. Lily didn't cry. She just pressed her cheek to Noah's head. Eyes squeezed shut, as if she could fuse them together. Back home, Ethan moved like someone running out of oxygen. He called Dr. Calvin Harper, who came with a scale and a calm that filled the room. "Noah's gained nearly 4 pounds, the doctor said, scribbling hard. "Miles is catching up. And Lily," he glanced at the girl, laughing softly as she stacked blocks for the twins. "She looks like a child again." Then the doorbell rang. A woman with a notebook stood on the porch. "Claire Bennett. Channel 7, she said. "I heard what's happening. Let people see the truth." The story hit the internet like dry grass catching flame. Messages poured in. Lawyers offered help. Strangers mailed diapers. And a retired social worker, Teresa Vaughn, sat at Ethan's table and built a binder thick enough to hurt someone. "We don't beg, Dana," she murmured. "We go above her." On the final morning in a quiet courthouse hallway, Judge Harold Whitman looked down at Lily. "Where do you want to live?" Lily didn't glance at Ethan for permission. She stepped forward, chin lifted. "With my dad," she said, "and my brothers stay with me." The judge's pen paused, then moved, and Ethan felt the ground for the first time in weeks stop slipping beneath his feet. The courthouse air smelled like old paper and coffee, and Ethan could hear his own heartbeat louder than the hallway chatter. Judge Harold Whitman didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He flipped through the binder. Teresa Vaughn had built Dr. Calvin Harper's medical report, clipped on top. Photos tucked behind it. Lily's hollow cheeks in week 1. Her wide smile 2 weeks later. Noah and Miles gaining weight, eyes brighter, arms less fragile. Whitman looked up, eyes kind but sharp. "Mr. Reed, you understand this isn't a feel-good story. It's a lifetime." Ethan's throat tightened. He didn't reach for polished words. "Yes, Your Honor. And I'm still here." Lily stood beside him. Small shoulders squared, one hand resting on the stroller like it was an anchor. When the judge nodded slowly, Ethan felt the whole room hold its breath. "I am granting temporary guardianship effective immediately," Whitman said, "and I'm accelerating the adoption process." He paused, glancing at a note on the file. "Caseworker Dana Cross will be removed from this matter due to inappropriate interference." Lily's face cracked open, silent tears. Then a shaky laugh she tried to swallow. She launched forward, wrapping her arms around Ethan's waist, as if she could finally stop bracing for impact. Ethan closed his eyes and held her like a promise made physical. 3 months later, the final hearing was almost quiet. Just the judge's stamp, the click of a pen, and Ethan whispering, "It's official." Lily looked up, eyes shining. "Forever, forever," he said. And this time no one could take the word away. And if you'd seen them 6 months after that, Lily in the backyard coaching Noah's wobbly first steps while Miles chased Giggles across the grass, you'd understand the system wrote paperwork. But love wrote the ending. 6 months after the papers were signed, Ethan Reed stood at the kitchen sink with a dish towel over his shoulder, watching the backyard through the window like it was the evening news, and the only story that mattered. The lawn was a patchwork of sunlight and shadow, and right in the middle of it, Lily knelt in the grass, both hands hovering inches from Noah's ribs, not touching, just ready. "Easy, easy. You've got it," she whispered. Noah took one wobbly step, then another. His knees buckled, his mouth opened in surprise. Then he laughed, that bright, toothy baby laugh that makes grown men forget how to breathe. Miles, already faster, sprint crawled toward him like a tiny referee shrieking with victory. Lily clapped once, then caught Noah before he face-planted, pulling him into her chest like she'd been doing it her whole life. Ethan's fingers tightened around the towel. Not from fear this time, something closer to gratitude. He'd spent years measuring success in meetings, contracts, and polished silence. Now his calendar was scribbled with pediatric checkups, story time at the library, and buy more wipes in all caps. His suits hung untouched more often than not. His phone stayed face down during breakfast. And look, if you're watching this and thinking, he had money so of course it worked out. Money didn't teach him how to warm a bottle at 2 a.m. Money didn't steady Lily's shaking hands the first night she finally slept in a bed. Love did. Repetition did. Showing up did. "Dad," Lily called, turning toward the window like she knew he was there. Noah did it 3 steps. Ethan stepped outside barefoot on the cool porch boards and smiled so wide it almost hurt. "I saw," he said. "And I'm right here." That night after bath time, and a messy dinner of macaroni that ended up everywhere except the bowls, Ethan carried Miles to the crib and felt the baby's warm breath puff against his collarbone. Noah was already half asleep, thumb in his mouth, lashes stuck together from the day's tears and laughter. In the doorway, Lily stood in oversized pajamas, rubbing her eyes like she was trying to remember how it felt to be 8. Ethan reached for the light switch, then paused. "Hey," he said softly, turning back. "Come here." Lily didn't run. She walked slow, careful, like trust was something you crossed one step at a time. Ethan lowered himself so they were face to face. "Do you remember what you asked me on the sidewalk?" he whispered. Her throat bobbed. "I asked if you'd take one of us." Ethan nodded, swallowing the lump that still surprised him every time. "And I thought I was just answering a question," he said, "but I was choosing a life." Lily's fingers twisted the hem of her shirt. "You're not going to change your mind, right? Not later, not when it gets hard." Ethan breathed out steady and sure. He opened his arms, not pulling, just offering. Lily stepped in and pressed her forehead into his chest, listening to his heartbeat like it was proof. I didn't say yes to one, he murmured into her hair. I said yes to all of you. Yes to late-night fevers. Yes to school plays and scraped knees. Yes to forever. Behind them, Noah made a tiny sigh in his sleep. Miles shifted, then settled. Lily's shoulders finally dropped like she'd been holding them up for years. And if you're still watching, hear this: family isn't always who finds you first. Sometimes it's who refuses to let go when the world tries to pull you apart. In the weeks that followed, Ethan didn't just help, he changed in the small, unglamorous ways that nobody applauds. He learned to keep a thermometer on the counter. He learned which cry meant hungry and which meant scared. He learned to cut grapes into quarters and to sit through a tantrum without walking away. The man who used to leave meetings early now left his phone on silent during bedtime because Lily's voice mattered more than any ringtone. Some nights, Lily still woke up with a sharp inhale, as if she'd been pushed underwater in a dream. Ethan would hear the creak of her door, the soft padding of feet. And then she'd appear in the hallway, eyes wide, arms empty, like she was checking the world was still there. They're still here, Ethan would say before she could speak, already moving toward the nursery. Lily would stand beside him in the dim light, watching Noah and Miles rise and fall with each breath. Only then would her shoulders loosen just a fraction. Ethan didn't ask her to explain. He simply stayed, one hand on the crib rail, the other resting lightly on her back, like an anchor. And listen, if you've ever raised kids, you know this part isn't made of big speeches. It's made of showing up, over and over, even when you're tired, especially when you're tired. One quiet evening, Lily surprised him. She slid her hand into his as they stood there, eyes on the sleeping twins. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. You really meant it, she said, forever. Ethan squeezed her fingers gently. I mean it every day, he answered. And for the first time, Lily didn't look like a kid bracing for loss. She looked like a kid who finally believed she could stay. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, Ethan found Lily at the dining table with a dull pencil and a stack of construction paper. Her tongue caught between her teeth in fierce concentration. She was making a card, crooked hearts, uneven letters, while Noah and Miles banged plastic cups on the floor like a tiny drum line. Ethan leaned in. What's that? Lily didn't look up. It's for you. Her voice was casual, but her fingers trembled just a little. When she finally slid it across the table, he saw the words spelled the way an 8-year-old spells when she's rushing faster than her feelings. Thank you for keeping us together. Underneath, 3 stick figures, 1 tall, 2 small, one with long hair, were drawn, holding hands so tightly the lines overlapped. Ethan's throat closed. He didn't make a speech. He just sat down beside her, and for a second he couldn't move, like his body had to catch up to what his heart already knew. And look, if you're watching this with a few decades behind you, if you've ever loved someone and worried the world might take them, this is the part that lands hardest. Because it's not the courtroom that saved them. It's not the paperwork. It's the daily decision to stay. Lily scooted closer until her shoulder touched his. You remember my question? She asked, eyes fixed on the card, like it was safer than looking at him. Ethan nodded once. She whispered it anyway, the same words that started everything. Would you take one of us? Ethan turned his palm up on the table, an invitation, not a demand. Lily placed her hand in his, small and warm. I already did, he said, and I'd do it again, every single time. That evening, when the house finally settled into its soft nighttime rhythm, Ethan stood at the bottom of the stairs and listened. No boardroom hum, no city horns, just the faint whir of the baby monitor and Lily's voice upstairs, low, steady, reading the same picture book for the 3rd time, because Noah liked the way she did the funny voices, and Miles calmed down when she didn't rush. Ethan climbed the steps quietly. In the doorway, he saw it like a scene he never knew he needed. Lily curled in the rocker with one twin tucked under each arm, their tiny fingers snagged in her sleeve. She looked up, eyes heavy but peaceful. You're going to miss your old life, she said, like she was testing a bruise. Ethan walked in and knelt beside her, careful not to wake the boys. He brushed a curl off Miles's forehead with the back of his knuckle. "I already did," he whispered. "I miss the man who thought he was fine alone." Lily blinked fast, swallowing hard. "So, you'd still do it, if you could go back to that sidewalk?" Ethan didn't answer with a speech. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the crooked card she'd made earlier, the one he'd carried around all day like a secret. He tapped the stick figure family with his thumb. "I'd say yes," he murmured. "Yes to 1, yes to 2, yes to 3, yes to the mess, the worry, the hard nights, and the good mornings." Lily's shoulders sank finally unarmored. She leaned her head against his just for a breath. "And if you're watching this with years of love behind you, you already know the truth. Sometimes the family that saves you is the one you choose back." The next morning, the house woke up the way Ethan still wasn't used to soft thuds of little feet. A baby's hiccupy laugh, the smell of oatmeal instead of espresso. Sunlight spilled across the hallway, and Lily padded in holding Noah on one hip, while Miles clung to her pajama leg like a barnacle. She looked tired, but it wasn't the old kind of tired, the hunted kind. This was the tired of someone who finally believed the day would end safely. Ethan crouched and opened his arms. Lily didn't hesitate. She let Noah slide into Ethan's shoulder, and for a second Ethan just stood there, feeling the baby's warm weight and the steady rise and fall of a breath that used to scare him. Lily watched his face like she was reading a weather report. "You're really staying," she said. Ethan smiled small and real. "I'm not going anywhere." Miles reached for Ethan's tie, one of the few he still wore, grabbing it with a fist like he owned it. Ethan laughed under his breath, letting the tiny hand tug him closer. Lily's eyes flicked to the framed card on the entry table. Her crooked letters, the stick figure family holding hands too tight. "You know," she said, voice quieter now, "I thought that question on the sidewalk was my last hope." Ethan's throat tightened. He brushed her hair back gently, the way you do when you're trying not to cry in front of a kid who's already cried enough. And it turned out, he whispered, it was my first real life. Sometimes the biggest turning point isn't a big decision. It's a small moment of courage, stopping looking and choosing to care. And if you're 65 or older watching this, hear me clearly, it is never too late to become someone's safe place. Love doesn't ask how young you are, how rich you are, or how perfect your past was. Love asks one thing: will you show up? If this story hit you, tell me in the comments. What would you have done if you were Ethan? And if you believe family can be chosen, subscribe, because we share stories like this every week, the kind that remind us what still matters.